A galaxy on the edge of collapse, the galaxy was breaking apart. Once, great empires had fallen into dust, and powerful fleets that had once ruled the stars now drifted silently, forgotten. Fear ruled every corner of space. No one was safe anymore. The enemy was the Vrothians. Brutal, merciless, unstoppable. They did not conquer for glory or resources. They conquered because they enjoyed it. They left behind nothing but ashes and sorrow, planet after planet, system after system. They swept across the galaxy like a black storm. On the planet of Jora, deep inside an underground council chamber, the last free species gathered. Leaders from distant worlds, old rivals and sworn enemies, now sat together desperate. The room was cold, silent except for the occasional hum of dying machinery. Hope was fading fast. Zira, the captain of the Elvarians, stood before the council. She was tall, her silver skin glowing faintly under the dim lights. Her voice was steady, but inside, fear twisted her heart. "We have lost half our worlds," Zira said, her voice echoing off the stone walls. "Our fleets are shattered. Our people are hunted like animals. We need a solution." The others murmured among themselves, but no one spoke clearly. There were no more clever plans, no more hidden weapons. Only fear remained. An old Draxian elder, his face lined with deep scars, finally spoke. "There is one possibility," he said, voice trembling. "One we have long feared to even whisper." The council leaned in. "Humans," he said. The room fell into a heavy silence. Zira felt her heart skip. Humans. The name was like a curse. Long ago, humans had fought wars so brutal, so devastating that even the strongest species had learned to avoid them. They were not conquerors. They were survivors, warriors of pure instinct and endless rage. And then they vanished, sealing themselves away on their homeworld Earth as if they too feared what they might become. "They are dangerous," another leader said, shaking his head. "They will destroy us as quickly as they would help us." "Perhaps," the elder replied. "But if we do nothing, the Vrothians will destroy us anyway. Would you rather face certain death, or gamble for survival?" Zira closed her eyes for a moment. She remembered the stories her grandmother used to tell. Tales of humans who could turn the tide of entire wars, not by their numbers, but by their will, by their refusal to surrender, by their fury when pushed too far. "We have no other choice," Zira said at last. The council argued. Some shouted, some wept. But in the end, they all agreed. A small team would be sent to Earth. They would ask the humans for help, or if necessary, beg. As the decision was made, a heavy weight settled on Zira's shoulders. She was chosen to lead the mission. The fate of the galaxy would rest on her words, on her courage, and maybe on the mercy of the most feared species ever known. Later that night, as Zira stood alone in the observation deck of the council tower, she looked out into the starless void. So many lights had gone dark, so many voices silenced forever. She placed her hand against the glass. Somewhere out there, beyond the endless black, were humans. Monsters, heroes, myths. And soon, she would face them. Was this a rescue mission, or a death sentence? Zira did not know, but she did know one thing. They had no other choice. The ship chosen for the mission was called the Last Light. It was small, fast, and old. It carried scars from a dozen wars. Zira's team boarded in silence. There was no ceremony, no cheering crowds, just the quiet understanding that few, if any, would ever return. The engines rumbled to life. The ship rose from the surface of Jora and climbed into the dark sea of stars. As they left their home behind, Zira turned to her team. A group of brave souls, a Draxian warrior, a slim aquatic from Marissa Prime, a silent tinkerer from Voltaire. All trusted her. All believed in the mission. "We are not just asking for help," Zira told them. "We are asking for hope." No one answered. They didn't need to. Outside the window, the stars stretched like rivers of light. Far ahead, past the broken empires and the forgotten wars, waited Earth and the beings who might decide their future. As the last light jumped into faster-than-light travel, Zira whispered a quiet prayer to the universe. Please, let the stories about humans be true, please. Let them still remember how to fight, because if they didn't, the galaxy was truly lost. The journey into the unknown, the ship, the last light, moved silently through the darkness of space, leaving behind the broken remains of a dying galaxy. Inside, the crew sat in heavy silence. No one spoke unless they had to. Every mind was filled with the same thought. What awaited them on Earth? Zira stood at the front of the ship's bridge, staring at the star maps glowing in the air before her. Their route was dangerous. No established path led to Earth anymore. The old navigation beacons were dead, swallowed by time and war. They would have to fly blind, hoping to avoid pirate hunters and wandering Vrothian patrols. As the engines hummed low and steady, Zira's second-in-command, a Draxian named Korvac, approached her. "We are entering the abandoned zones," he said, quietly. "No patrols, no safety. If we are attacked, no one will come to help." Zira nodded. She already knew, but saying it out loud made it more real, more frightening. The abandoned zones were graveyards of forgotten wars. Broken ships drifted here like ghosts. Colonies long dead floated aimlessly, their structures torn apart by the slow violence of time. Stories said strange things lived here now. Scavengers, monsters, and worse things no one dared name. Zira tightened her hands around the rail. "Keep the ship dark," she said. "No signals, no lights. We are ghosts now, too." The crew obeyed. The lights inside dimmed to a faint red glow. The ship became a shadow moving through the endless night. Hours passed, then days. Strange signals whispered at the edge of their sensors. Sometimes Zira thought she saw shapes moving in the darkness outside, too big, too wrong to be ships. But when she looked closer, there was nothing. The crew grew tense. Korvac kept his weapon close at all times. The Marison pilot, a gentle being named Selah, sang quiet songs under her breath to keep fear away. The tinkerer, Vol, rarely left the engine room, as if burying himself in machines could protect him from the unknown. One night, as Zira sat alone in the command chair, a sharp sound broke the silence. A proximity alarm. Everyone rushed to their stations. On the screen appeared a massive shipwreck larger than anything Zira had ever seen. It drifted slowly, its broken hull covered in strange glowing plants. Parts of it still flickered with old power. Dead, yet somehow alive. "Should we go around it?" Selah asked, voice shaking. Zira hesitated. Flying around would take days they could not afford, but going through, the risk was terrible. "Stay sharp," Zira ordered. "We go through." The ship slipped into the wreck's shadow. Massive metal walls loomed on either side, black and jagged. Debris floated everywhere, scraping lightly against the hull. Every sound made Zira's heart jump. Deep inside the wreck, the sensors picked up something, a weak signal. Old human, code, centuries old. Zira leaned forward. "What is it?" Vol scanned quickly. "An old beacon, human-made. It's calling for help," Korvac growled low in his throat. "It could be a trap," Zira agreed. But she also knew humans were unpredictable. Maybe one had survived here. Maybe it was a warning left for others. Or maybe it was bait. "Record everything," Zira said. "But do not respond." They passed deeper into the wreck and the signal grew louder. Zira could almost make out words now. Something about a last stand. Something about not surrendering. A chill ran down her spine. After what felt like forever, the last light finally slipped out of the wreck and back into open space. The signal faded into static behind them. No one spoke for a long time. Only one thing was clear now. Humans had been here. Once. Fighting some forgotten enemy. and even in death they refused to stop calling out. They were closer to Earth now, closer to meeting the monsters who had once terrified the galaxy. "How much longer?" Zira asked quietly. Sela checked the coordinates. "3 more jumps," she said. "Then we will be in their home." Zira nodded. Her stomach twisted with a mix of fear and strange excitement. Before she left Jorah, she had thought of humans as a weapon, something dangerous, but necessary. Now she was beginning to wonder. What if they were even worse than the old stories said? What if by waking them they unleashed something the galaxy could never survive? As the last light prepared for the final jump to Earth, Zira closed her eyes and whispered the same prayer she had spoken before. "Please let them be heroes. Please, because, if they were not, the Vrothians would be the least of their problems." First contact. Meeting the beasts, the final jump ended with a violent shudder. The last light dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of a cold, quiet solar system. Ahead of them, a small blue planet floated, half hidden by silver clouds. Earth. For a long moment, no one spoke. The crew simply stared. "Scans show heavy defenses," Sela whispered, her voice thin with fear. "We are being watched." Zira expected this. Humans were famous for guarding their home fiercely. But knowing it and seeing it were 2 very different things. Cold shivers ran down her back. Before Zira could speak, an alarm blared. "Multiple signals," Vol shouted. "Incoming fast." On the screen, tiny shapes appeared. Human ships, fast, armored, and bristling with weapons. They moved like predators smelling fresh blood. "Weapons ready," Korvac growled, but Zira shook her head. "No," she said firmly. "We cannot win a fight. Show them we are not a threat." Sela powered down the weapons. Lights across the last light dimmed even further. They drifted in space, small and helpless. The human ships surrounded them with perfect precision. Not a single move was wasted. Zira watched in silent awe and terror. These were not ships piloted by cowards. They moved like hunters who knew exactly when to strike. A transmission came through, short, commanding. "Identify yourselves." The voice was rough and cold. It carried no fear, only control. Zira stood before the communicator and spoke clearly. "We are emissaries from the free worlds," she said. "We seek an audience, we seek help." There was a long, heavy silence. Then, the voice returned. "Prepare to be boarded." Sela's hands trembled at the controls. Korvac muttered a silent curse under his breath. Vol disappeared toward the engine room, checking the ship's core in case of sabotage. Zira stayed still, her heart hammering in her chest. There was no turning back now. The human boarding ship attached itself to the last light with a loud metallic thud. Moments later, the airlock opened. They came in like shadows. Heavily armored soldiers in black suits, faces hidden behind featureless helmets. Their movements were sharp, precise. Even without seeing their faces, Zira could feel their power. Air seemed to thicken around them. One of them stepped forward. He was taller than the others, carrying a weapon larger than Zira had ever seen. He removed his helmet. Underneath was a human male, his face scarred and weathered by countless battles. His eyes, pale gray, were colder than space itself. "I am Commander Blake," he said, voice low and calm. "You will come with us." Zira nodded, choosing her words carefully. "We mean no harm. We seek alliance." Blake studied her for a long moment, as if peeling away her lies even before she spoke them. "That will be decided later," he said. They were escorted onto a human warship, massive, heavily armed, and humming with quiet menace. Everywhere Zira looked, she saw strength. Strength built not from size or numbers, but from a refusal to ever be weak again. The ambassadors were placed in a large, plain room. No decorations, no kindness. After a long wait, Commander Blake returned. "You will meet the general," he said. "He decides if you live or die. No emotion, just fact." Zira's throat tightened, but she nodded. They were led down endless metal corridors. Human soldiers lined the walls, weapons ready, but lowered. Every pair of eyes followed them silently. At last, they entered a large chamber. At its center stood the general. He was not what Zira expected. An old man, broad-shouldered, his hair silver, his face marked by deep lines of pain and anger. Yet his eyes, sharp, alert, filled with dangerous life, pinned Zira where she stood. "You traveled a long way," the general said, voice like grinding stone. "To ask for something you have not earned." Zira stepped forward carefully. "We have no other choice." The general narrowed his eyes. "That is your problem, not ours." The room fell into silence. Zira realized in that moment, humans did not see them as allies, not yet. They saw them as beggars, as potential threats. The general leaned back slightly, studying them like a hawk watches a trembling mouse. "Words mean nothing," he said finally. "Actions do." Zira felt a chill spread through her bones. Something told her the true test was only just beginning, and if they failed, humans would crush them without mercy. The test of trust. The room was silent. Zira stood before the general, her hands steady, her eyes locked onto his. The general's gaze was unreadable, his face a mask of stone. "You want our help?" he said, his voice low and firm. "But trust is earned, not given." Zira nodded. "We understand." The general leaned forward. "Then prove it." He pressed a button on his desk. A holographic map appeared, showing a desolate planet on the edge of human territory. "This is Trialis," he said. "An abandoned world, once used for training. It's harsh, unforgiving, and deadly." He looked at Zira. "You and your team will be dropped there. Survive for 7 days. No weapons, no communication, no assistance. If you make it, we'll talk." Zira felt a chill run down her spine. She glanced at her team, Korvac, Sela, Vol. They all nodded, determination in their eyes. "We accept," she said. The journey to Trialis was brief. The human shuttle dropped them on the planet's surface and departed without a word. The landscape was barren, with jagged rocks and swirling dust storms. The air was thin, making every breath a struggle. "We need shelter," Zira said. They found a cave nearby and settled in for the night. The temperature dropped rapidly, and they huddled together for warmth. The next morning, they set out to find food and water. The terrain was treacherous, with hidden crevices and unstable ground. Sela spotted a small stream, but as they approached, a creature emerged from the water, a massive reptilian beast with razor-sharp teeth. "Run!" Zira shouted. They scattered, the creature chasing after them. Korvac distracted it, drawing it away from the others. After hours of evasion, they regrouped, exhausted and injured. "We can't survive like this," Vol said, nursing a wound on his arm. "We have to," Zira replied. "We have no choice." Days passed. They faced numerous challenges, scarce resources, dangerous creatures, and the constant threat of the environment. They learned to adapt, using their skills and knowledge to overcome obstacles. They hunted for food, purified water, and built better shelters. On the 6th day, a violent storm hit. They took refuge in a cave, but the entrance collapsed, trapping them inside. "We're running out of air," Sela said, panic in her voice. Zira examined the cave walls. "There's a weak spot here. If we work together, we can break through." They used makeshift tools to chip away at the rock. Hours passed, their strength waning. Finally, they broke through, gasping as fresh air filled their lungs. They emerged into the sunlight, battered but alive. On the 7th day, a human shuttle arrived. The door opened and Commander Blake stepped out. He looked at them, a hint of respect in his eyes. "You survived," he said. Zira nodded. "We did." Blake gestured for them to board. "The general wants to see you." Back on the human ship, they stood before the general once more. He studied them, his expression unreadable. You've proven your resilience, he said. But strength alone isn't enough. He paused. We'll help you, but on our terms. Zira met his gaze. We accept. The general nodded. Then let's begin. The decision that changed everything. The room was silent. Zira and her team stood before the general, their bodies bruised and weary from the trial on Trialis. The general's eyes scanned them, his expression unreadable. You've proven your resilience, he said finally, but strength alone isn't enough. Zira stepped forward. We're ready to do whatever it takes. The general nodded slowly. Very well, we'll help you, but on our terms. He gestured to a holographic map that appeared between them. It displayed the galaxy, with various regions highlighted. We won't just defend your worlds, he continued. We'll take the fight to the Vrothians, we'll strike at their heart. Zira's eyes widened. An offensive? Yes, the general confirmed. We'll use our tactics, our strategies. But you'll need to trust us completely. Zira exchanged glances with her team. They nodded in agreement. We trust you, she said. The general's lips curled into a faint smile. Then let's begin. The following days were a whirlwind of activity. Zira and her team were introduced to human, military protocols, their advanced weaponry and their unorthodox tactics. They trained alongside human soldiers, learning to adapt and think differently. The humans were relentless, their methods unconventional but effective. Zira was both impressed and unnerved. The humans approached warfare with a cold efficiency, viewing it as a necessary means to an end. One evening, as Zira reviewed battle plans with Commander Blake, she voiced her concerns. Your strategies are aggressive, she said cautiously. Blake looked at her, his gaze steady. We fight to win, Zira. Hesitation costs lives. She nodded slowly, understanding the weight of his words. The first joint operation was launched, a surprise attack on a Vrothian stronghold. The mission was a success, the enemy caught off guard by the humans' audacity. News of the victory spread quickly, boosting morale among the Allied forces. Hope began to flicker in the hearts of those who had long since given up. But with each victory came a growing unease. The humans' methods were effective but brutal. Collateral damage was considered acceptable if it meant achieving the objective. Zira grappled with the moral implications. Was the cost of victory too high? She confided in Korvac, who offered a pragmatic perspective. We asked for their help, he reminded her. This is how they fight. We must accept it. Zira nodded, but the doubt lingered. As the campaign progressed, the Vrothians began to retreat, their forces unable to withstand the relentless human assault. The tide of the war was turning, but at what cost? Zira stood on the bridge of a human warship, watching as another Vrothian world fell. The devastation was immense. She turned to Commander Blake. Is this the only way? Blake met her gaze. It's the way that works. Zira looked back at the burning planet, a heavy weight settling in her chest. They were winning the war, but losing something else in the process. Unleashing humanity's fury, the Vrothians had never known fear. For centuries, they had conquered, enslaved, and destroyed without resistance. Their name alone was enough to make entire civilizations surrender. But that changed when they faced humanity. The first strike was swift. Human ships, sleek and silent, appeared in Vrothian space without warning. They attacked military outposts, communication hubs, and supply lines with surgical precision. The Vrothians were caught off guard. Their defenses crumbled. Their fleets, once thought invincible, were reduced to debris. Commander Blake led the assault. His strategies were unorthodox, his tactics unpredictable. He used the enemy's strengths against them, turning their pride into their downfall. Zira watched in awe and horror. She had hoped for help, but this was something else entirely. The humans were not just fighting. They were dismantling the Vrothians piece by piece. On the ground, human soldiers advanced with relentless determination. They moved through cities and fortresses, leaving no resistance standing. Their weapons were advanced, but it was their willpower that truly terrified the enemy. The Vrothians tried to regroup, to counterattack, but every move they made was anticipated and countered. Their leaders were captured or eliminated. Their morale shattered. Zira confronted the general. "This is more than war," she said. "It's annihilation." The general looked at her, his expression unreadable. "They started this," he replied. "We're ending it." The galaxy watched in stunned silence. The Vrothians, once the apex predators, were now the prey, and humanity was the hunter. As the final Vrothian stronghold fell, Zyra realized the truth. The humans had not just saved the galaxy, they had reshaped it. A new era born in fear and respect. The war was over. The Vrothians had been defeated, their empire shattered. The galaxy, once teetering on the brink of destruction, now stood at the dawn of a new era. But peace did not bring comfort. Instead, it brought uncertainty. Zyra stood on the observation deck of the human flagship, gazing out at the stars. The silence was deafening. "We did it," she whispered. Commander Blake approached, his expression unreadable. "Yes," he said. "But at what cost?" The humans had proven their strength, their resilience, their unmatched capacity for warfare. They had become the galaxy's most formidable force. Alien species, once dominant, now looked to humanity with a mix of awe and fear. Treaties were signed, alliances formed, but trust was fragile. In the Galactic Council chamber, representatives from across the stars gathered. The atmosphere was tense. "We must ensure this peace lasts," Zyra said, addressing the assembly. A murmur of agreement followed, but eyes kept darting toward the human delegation. The general stood, his presence commanding. "We seek peace," he declared, "but we will not be passive. Any threat to this stability will be met with force." The message was clear. On Earth, celebrations were muted. The victory was acknowledged, but the weight of responsibility loomed large. "We've become the guardians of the galaxy," Blake said to Zyra. "It's a role we never asked for." Zyra nodded. "But perhaps it's one you were meant to have." As time passed, humanity's influence grew. They helped rebuild worlds, shared technology, and offered protection. Yet the memory of their fury remained. Children across the galaxy were taught about the humans, not just as saviors, but as a warning. "Never provoke them," the elders would say, "for their wrath is unmatched." Zyra returned to her homeworld, hailed as a hero, but she carried the burden of what she had witnessed. In a quiet moment, she recorded a message. "We turned to the most feared species for help. They saved us but changed the galaxy forever. May we never forget the price of survival." The stars continued to shine, but the galaxy was forever altered. A new era had begun, one born in fear and respect.